This is Agriculture Today, and I'm Shelby Varner with the K-State Radio Network. Dan O'Brien, K-State grain economist, begins today's show with this week's grain market outlook. He explains how the weather still plays a major role in the markets here and abroad. K-State cow-calf extension specialist Jason Warner keeps the show moving by previewing the upcoming Cattle U Educational Conference. He says what topics will be presented and what producers can get from the day. Ending the show for today is K-State meteorologist Chip Redmond with another weather update that involves severe weather. Chip discusses how this year's severe weather quotas are comparing. That and more is coming up ahead on Agriculture Today. You're tuned in to Agriculture Today, and we start our Friday show with a grain market update with K-State grain economist Dan O'Brien. Dan, thanks for joining us today.
Yes, thank you, Shelby.
Dan, kicking off our grain market conversation as we always do with what are futures looking like?
Well, futures have been reacting both up and down of late to weather issues largely. We've taken in stride what came out of the May 10th World Ag Supply Demand Estimates reports and the relatively conservative supply demand balance projections and price projections that they brought about, and then have been looking at or trying to digest different trends in terms of planting and crop development, etc. So I think we are right in the midst of the time. Heavens, here we are in mid to late June, heading in where we're looking at planting, crop development, etc. We still have in the back of our minds those forecasts of potential La Nina influenced dry weather conditions in late summer, but that's still quote out there, and we'll I guess the market's decided we'll watch and see where things are at. So when you look at for corn, July corn closed at $4.64 per bushel, $4.64 a bushel yesterday on the 23rd, and that we had seen the July contract get up as high as about $4.75. So it's we're just kind of bouncing along, not really showing any tremendous worry as of yet. Dees corn, 486.5. We had seen Dees corn get above 490, 495, heading towards 5. And that's frankly kind of what I would wonder about, Shelby, is if we do start to see more concerns about crop development coming in when we see Dees rise from its current levels to get closer to again, these reference prices in the market, these places where we put a pin in, it'd be $5, $5.25, $5.50, something like that. But we're not there yet. When you look at wheat, here we've digested what the wheat tour brought, and really I think the average yield is for Kansas about 46 bushels per acre, not forecasting any major problems. And we've had some moisture coming in, et cetera. Yes, some concerns about treating for different diseases late season, but so far, kind of taking the mix of the good and the bad in the state, generally we've got prices that for wheat that have gone higher. A week or so ago, $6.40, $6.50, $6.60 here. Yesterday's close for July, the harvest contract, $7.10. So that's in play. And international concerns, worries about frosts, drought in the Black Sea region, some moisture issues. Some crop production problems in Europe also in play. So you've got all that coming in to help provide some support on the futures for wheat. And again, 710 being the harvest contract number we're looking at. And that, I don't want to not point out how it wasn't but about 2-3 weeks ago we were down to 625 for that contract. So to have jumped up to just under 725 and to be at 710 now shows again, in this type of an environment where the market's kind of their knee-jerk first impulsive response is to be pessimistic. Well, hey, we've come up 50, 60 cents. So that's a great thing. When you look at soybeans closed yesterday at $12.39. And again, the low, we have been up to about $12.55 they're 1255, 1260 thereabouts in over the last couple of weeks. 2 weeks ago, we got up to that, broke closer down to 12, came back up. So to be sitting at 1239 and a quarter right now is surely higher than where we were over the last couple 2-3 months on the lows anyway. So I guess overall again we have planting for soybeans in the U.S. underway. We're at 52% planted overall in Kansas. Well, that was as of May 19th. We're at 43%, again about 4% ahead. So not any great concerns there. And I should say for corn plantings, we're in the U.S. again as of May 19th. That would have been, well, that's last weekend, last Sunday. We are nationally 70%, 71% 5-year average. Kansas at 74%. That's 5% ahead of normal. So if we're looking for, as we look to planting concerns around the U.S., where there are problems, they're more isolated, where they've had too much rain, they've been delayed, but not really anything yet to really spur the market to sharply higher numbers. So I guess when you stand back and look at the corn, the sorghum, the hard red winter wheat and soybean markets, there are different paths we can go forward, but perhaps if we have time at the end, we can take a look at that.
And Dan, moving on to talking about what we're seeing for cash.
Yeah, I think what's most noticeable to me is the improvement in wheat prices. Here in Kansas, you look at the highest price amongst those reported in some of these different areas, particularly in, say, Hutchinson, 705. Yeah, on yesterday's close. That's a terminal bid, export oriented, etc. 705 top bid, 695 top bids in the Salina, Topeka area. 684 in Columbus. If you go out to the west, things are lower. Garden City 656, 636 in Colby. And again, we're not harvesting any wheat here yet. The new crop bids, what really stands out again is in that Hutchinson area, 706. As a new crop bid, and 681, both Salina and Topeka, and others somewhat lower. So I think Kansas farmers, as they see those prices, they're surely better than they were a while back. We have the same conundrum, given the production risks that we still have getting to the finish line. To what degree do they go out and forward contract, lock in some of these higher prices, knowing that if wheat harvest does come on strong and we'd happen to get harvest reports that are average or better than average, as given what we've just been through, well, we'd probably go lower. So it's a time of risk management in the markets for farmers right now. And when we look at other commodities, interesting that the highest cash corn price in the state, $4.99, Garden City area, 35 cents over. And I keep hearing rumors of, and that's at the elevators, keep hearing rumors at feedlots of prices being higher. It is interesting that when you look at yesterday's closes on the at the ethanol plants, there's a bid in Kansas, top bid 538 and a quarter, average bid in Kansas for ethanol plants at 510, and there's not, and the next highest bid in the whole United States is 496 and a quarter in Nebraska, average 471. So in terms of averages, we're about 35 cents higher in Kansas for ethanol plant corn bids than anywhere else in the country, and that's to me that's something to ponder.
How is summer looking like it might unfold for crops?
Well, as we've just been talking about, we're to this point. We have, I guess, our barometer of where the markets are going. So, by the time we finish out this year, again, 486 and a half corn, November beans at 1216, July again 710, and those are bids that are show, attentive wariness on the part of the markets, but really not anything that's really showing that gracious, we're really worried. We're wondering about what could happen, and as in a half a billion or a billion bushels lower for corn, or 500 million bushels lower for soybeans, or something like that. So we haven't had major price rallies yet, and we're probably going to be looking out into July, August to see what comes about in July. reproductive time with tasseling and pollination for corn, flowering for soybeans in August, and for sorghum that will be in a pretty similar situation. Again, sorghum so much driven by the export markets. By the way, I haven't mentioned that this last week for corn and for sorghum, we had strong export markets, really great weeks, and rumors of more purchases. So that's a positive to not forget. But again, as we have talked about for wheat, we're just on the cusp of a lot of very potentially volatile information that could come in and really affect that. And again, I still think that the wheat market is singular. We'll be focused locally on what we have here in the hard red crop, but the world's focus is what's happening over in Russia and Ukraine, where they've had some weather problems and just a lot of uncertainty all at play as we look at the grain markets this week.
So, Dan, is it fair to say that really the weather's still going to be the biggest player for what the crop's going to look like?
During these growing seasons, the weather is quote king. It's the predominant determining factor. And as weather goes, then you have international users in particular. If there's a shortfall in the crop, U.S. crops, given our export position, especially for corn, for sorghum, for soybeans, and also still pretty strong for wheat, then if you start to have buyers worry in the market about getting hold of supplies, that's when you have both the supply and the demand issues coming together, and that's still a possibility out there into the latter part of the summer.
Dan, I appreciate you taking the time to join us today and give us our grain market update.
Thank you very much, Shelby. I appreciate it.
That was K-State grain economist Dan O'Brien. We're cutting to a short break now on Agriculture Today, but we'll be right back. You're tuned in to Agriculture Today, and we continue our show talking about an upcoming conference. And then to talk about it, we're joined by K-State Extension cow-calf specialist Jason Warner. Jason, thanks for joining us today.
Hi, Shelby. Great to be on. Thanks for having me.
Jason, what is this upcoming conference?
Really wanted to just take the opportunity to make folks aware of the Cattle U program, which will be held here in Manhattan later this summer. It's a great opportunity for folks to engage with each other and pick up some really good practical and usable information that's going to be very applicable to beef cattle operations. And so it's the Cattle U event, which will be held here in Manhattan, the Hilton Garden Inn, on Tuesday, June 25th.
And is there a sector of the cattle industry that the conference might be directed a little bit more towards?
Some of the sessions may be a little bit more geared towards the cow-calf segment of the industry, but certainly when you think about the broad topics that we have at this program, if you're involved in beef cattle production, I think there's certainly going to be something that you can take away from this program.
What are going to be some of those different topics?
I think this year we have a really balanced schedule and outline of topics that are going to be presented at this year's meeting, and we're really excited about it. A unique aspect of the program this year is that in conjunction with High Plains Journal, K-State Research and Extension is helping to put this program on, along with Certified Angus Beef and Cisco Foods. And a unique aspect of this program is that we'll have a beef quality assurance training and certification portion of the program that'll be held during one of the morning sessions. And so that will allow producers and participants to have an opportunity to either obtain certification for the first time if they've not already done so, or else renew or update their certification if they need to do that. And really the goal of that session is to help highlight the importance of why we have the Beef Quality Assurance Program and the value that it brings for increasing beef demand and creating value throughout all segments of the production chain. So that's a unique aspect of the program this year. We'll have a cattle facts market outlook and market update from one of the cattle facts analysts later on in the morning before we get into some of the breakout sessions later on throughout the day.
Included in the morning stuff will be a trade show, and what can people expect from that?
So really, I think the trade show is just a really nice complementary aspect to the overall program that we have. And so we have just a number of businesses and organizations that'll have some information on display that'll be present at the event, that'll have a wide range of information whether they're more focused in feed and livestock nutrition side of the industry, or if they're more focused in animal health and pharmaceuticals, insurance, product development, a wide range of industry representatives that will have information available at the event as well too. And those folks will be available throughout the day. And really, the way that we structure that is we don't have that in a separate meeting room or space. It'll all be within the same space. And so that just creates for an opportunity for folks to be able to engage with those folks and gain that information and look at the types of information and services that are presented there. And so great way to, again, network and engage and pick up good, valuable information and resources.
What other speakers could people hear before lunch?
So in the later morning sessions, we've got a couple of breakout sessions that will allow folks to be able to attend one of two different sessions, depending on what their interests really lay in. And one of those breakout sessions during that time period right before lunch will be focused on the future of pharmaceuticals and beef cattle production, which is a very important topic and always one that producers have a lot of questions around. And so again, regardless of what your specific sector is within the industry, regardless if you're a cow-calf producer, stock or backgrounder producer or feedlot producer, pharmaceutical use in beef cattle production is always a very important topic, and then again, one there's lots of questions around. So we'll have a session on that topic. And then the other session that'll be going on at the same time will be really focused on managing fly and insect populations in cattle and different strategies and techniques for fly and insect control in pastured cattle. And again, given the time of the year, that's always one that we find folks have lots of questions around and should be very, very interesting and applicable. So those are a couple of really good sessions that we're excited about immediately prior to the midday lunch and BQA training portion that'll be right during the middle part of the program.
And not wanting to forget something that is important, and that is lunch is provided.
Absolutely. We've got a lunch that's going to be sponsored by Certified Angus Beef. So really it's a culmination of the great partnerships that we have with our sponsors. We have multiple sponsors for this year's event. And so as a result, that's how we're able to keep this program to be free for all attendees. And so there's no cost to attend the program or for lunch as well too. That's all part of the program, which is why it should be more exciting and enticing for folks to come in. So absolutely.
Jason, what is taking place after lunch?
Right after the noon meal, we're going to have a producer panel. So we're really excited about that. And in previous years, we've had panels on this program as well. And so this will be one that will be made up of about 4 different producers, all within the cow-calf segment of the beef cattle industry, but a really good opportunity for attendees to hear from other producers and specialists in the industry about really ways where cow-calf producers can find ways to improve production efficiency, streamline economic incentives, and improve economic efficiency and opportunities to expand the success of their operations throughout all segments, really starting with the cow-calf industry. So we're really excited for that producer panel, and then that'll be right there in early afternoon, right after lunch, before we get into the later afternoon breakout sessions.
And what are those later afternoon breakout sessions?
Yeah, so really we have 4 different breakout sessions that'll be occurring there in the late afternoon portion of the program. And so the first 2 breakout sessions that folks will have an opportunity to choose from, there'll be a session about livestock risk management and all the different tools that are available there. And so we have a specialist that'll be joining us for that discussion, as well as another session that folks will have an opportunity to choose from that'll be focused on generation transfer and passing agricultural operations on to the next generation, and the importance of properly setting that process up and making sure that folks have a good plan in place for transitional planning. And so that's always a very important topic, and one that we know that there's always lots of questions and interest about from producers. And then the last couple of sessions that we have to round the day out, there'll be one on managing cow herds throughout 2024 and looking ahead into 2025 and really just kind of focused on where the cow herd is currently positioned from a growth standpoint and what opportunities there might be for the cow herd to strategically grow going into 2025 and really focused on key management strategies, things that folks are going to have to keep in mind in order for operations to be really strategically positioned going into next year. And then the last session that we'll have to round out the day will be focused on making strategic management decisions for harvesting corn silage for going into the fall, and we feel that that's a really nice complementary topic to have as part of the program. A lot of folks, especially here in Kansas, will be getting ready to harvest silage in early August, and so with this being a late June program, that's a good opportunity to have just some good practical information out there for folks to be keeping in mind as they make those decisions going into fall harvest. And so really a lot of the ideas behind that topic or the things that will be discussed will include making appropriate decisions with timeliness of harvest, things to keep in mind during harvest, like chop length, running a kernel processor, putting on inoculants, packing, storage considerations, calculations, those types of things. So really kind of that type of information is what we plan to have during that session. And again, we really feel just a really nicely balanced program with just a lot of really good, useful, applicable information, just really good content all the way through this year.
Jason, can you remind us about when and where this is taking place?
So Cattle U will be on Tuesday, June 25th, and that'll be at the Hilton Garden Inn here in Manhattan. And registration is currently open for the program, and so you can register by going online to cattleu.net. And there's additional information on the program and the detailed agenda and schedule for the day is all there, as well as additional information is available at our K-State Beef Extension website, ksubeef.org. And again, this program is free to attend. There's no cost for either the program or for the lunch. We do ask, though, that folks register in advance to help with meal planning and a meal count. But again, just a really nice, balanced program that we think is going to be attractive for folks regardless of how their operation is structured and what the specific focus of their operation is. Just good, usable, practical, production-focused information that cow-calf, stocker, and feedlot operators can take and take home with them. I think really one of the biggest aspects that I see with this program that we just want to highlight is the opportunity to bring people together. And certainly we know that there's a lot of information that's out there available for folks to be able to get a hold of online and that they can work through at their own leisure. But taking the time to come into an in-person program and just have that opportunity to visit with folks is really, really important. And so we see a lot of value with that and a tremendous opportunity to bring folks together because the networking aspect and the opportunity to visit not only with specialists and folks in the industry, but other producers from around the region is really valuable too. So we really look forward to it and it should be a great program this year.
Jason, I appreciate you taking the time to join us today.
Thanks, Shelby. Appreciate it.
That was K-State Extension cow-calf specialist Jason Warner. I will put links in today's show notes on agtoday.net where you can learn more about the program and get registered. We're cutting to a short break now, but we'll be right back. You're tuned in to Agriculture Today, and we conclude our Friday show with the weather update with K-State meteorologist Chip Redmond. Chip, thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Chip, starting off our conversation, mentioning the severe weather we've had this past week.
Yeah, we had a really active weekend, especially Sunday night for most of Kansas. We had multiple lines of storms that actually merged and became one big, as we call it in the meteorology world, windbag with a lot of wind and a lot of rain. And thankfully that helped eliminate some of the more potential tornado threats that we had across the region by just undercutting it all with cold outflow winds. The storms moved slowly, and they were slow enough to bring some much-needed rainfall. But unfortunately, the wind component of it was an issue with over 100 wind reports occurred across central and eastern Kansas. And that's a lot of wind reports. In fact, when we look at just annual averages, we get about 270-ish wind reports every year on average. But just 100 this event alone was pretty impressive. But probably the most promising thing is it did bring some much-needed rainfall and some rains in areas that hadn't seen rain in quite some time. And it also had some dust, too, with that wind, where it didn't rain further to the south and west. So it's severe weather season. It's been a long severe weather season for a lot of folks. When we look at we talked about wind already, hail is actually below normal. but tornadoes are above normal. We're already over the 60 mark. We're right around the mid-60s in tornadoes, and we average the low 60s for tornadoes on an annual basis. So we're already above our annual tornado count as well. Thankfully, these haven't been supercell-driven, strong tornadoes. These have been brief spin-ups for the most part on the edge of these wind lines, or we call them quasi-linear convective systems for some real science words. But so very brief. They're still damaging, but they're very limited in coverage.
With this moisture some people have been receiving, how has it impacted the drought monitor?
Yeah, so the moisture's still been fairly heavily loaded to the eastern part of the state, but northeast Kansas keeps being the winner, which is great. Like the Manhattan area, we're running about 3 inches above normal for the last 30 days with about 8 inches of rainfall. Feels like it rains every other day, and that's because it does. But we saw the rainfall last weekend. We have very saturated soils. We had a lot of rain last weekend over a longer period of time of multi-hours. And now all the ponds have been filled up, which is one of the things we look at for the drought monitor. So drought improvement has occurred in northeast Kansas pretty substantially. In fact, we've expanded nada or no drought quite a bit. Most of the eastern third of the state is now drought-free. However, we still have really dry conditions in the southwest. Extreme drought still remains in that one little corridor around Pawnee County, but we also expanded the severe drought along the Colorado border into northwest Kansas. So we are seeing kind of a ebb and flow still, and now we've kind of shifted it back westward.
And Chip, have we also been experiencing some cooler than normal temperatures?
Yeah, overall, our low temperatures, especially in the evening on these periods between rainfall events, we've had really dry air in place, so that's allowed our overnight lows to cool off, and we've been below average. That's not going to likely last too long. As you look into next week, we start to see the potential for warmer temperatures. We've got a lot of heat to our south that's going to start expanding northward as summer kind of starts to set in a little bit more, and we're watching that because it still looks like June will be above normal.
What can we be expecting weather-wise moving forward?
Yeah, so we have another severe weather episode that's likely to occur on Saturday. It's a holiday weekend. People are outside. They have a lot of big plans. Very concerned about Saturday because of people being active, as well as the volatility of the pattern. We've seen tornadoes, substantial tornado events in Texas and Oklahoma and Iowa this week alone. We're still really active. So that'll bring more precipitation. Things kind of quiet down early next week. And like I mentioned, we'll see some high pressure building into June. And I think overall severe weather will start to be reduced, and we'll see more summer-like warm, dry temperatures.
Chip, I appreciate you taking the time to join us today and give us this week's weather update.
Yep, thanks for having me.
That was K-State meteorologist Chip Redmond. That's all we have for you this week on Agriculture Today, but we'll be back with you on Tuesday, as we will not have a show on Monday for Memorial Day.